two things that I see we as women have a really hard time dealing with. And those two things are anger and debt. I think just because it's conditioned out of us, we actually think that emotion is completely useless and shameful to have anger. Feel your anger, transmute it, use it as fuel. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Let's remember that. And if there's debt going towards your business or your self-improvement or your health, I think that's positive debt. And we can't freak out about it so much. Welcome to The Introverted Influencer, the podcast for the woman who's over getting advice from 20-year-old business coaches on Bali sabbaticals and seven-figure entrepreneurs who only share their wins. I'm your host, Erica Van Slyke, blogger turned soulpreneur, mom of two, and a mentor for women done with the hustle. Here, sacred strategy meets feminine flow, and we expose what it really takes to build a business grounded in purpose, not trends. A brand that moves with your rhythm, not the algorithm, because you didn't leave your 9-to-5 grind just to build a shinier cage with your name on it. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back to episode 94 of the Introverted Influencer podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I have been kind of in this phase where, in terms of this podcast, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this, episode 94, I feel kind of like I'm running out of things to say. And it kind of freaked me out a little bit. But at the last minute, because I was like, shit, maybe I just shouldn't record anything this week if I don't have anything to say. And I started getting ready and going about my business. And then the download came to me, because I do pray before these episodes, what do people need to hear from me right now? And so it came to me, the two things that I'm trying to be better with, but it's funny because I'm also having that reflected to me in intimate relationships with other women that, the women who can really tell you like it is, they don't pretend that their shit doesn't stink and that their life is perfect. These are some insecurities that I see them going through as well. So I always think that if I'm going through something and then I see a friend or a family member is going through it too, that probably somebody out there needs to hear this. So it's kind of my chat about two things that I see we as women have a really hard time dealing with. And we actually make it a dirty word. And those two things are anger and debt. I know that kind of seems unrelated, and it kind of is, but what I've noticed, what I'm kind of working through right now, I've had these days where I wake up and I'm fucking angry and I can't explain why. I work out, so I've got a physical channel. I pray. I am trying to do a little more meditating now that my kids are in school, but my puppy golden retriever, he's adorable, Ryder. It's just I'll try to get him situated with a toy or something so he's distracted. As soon as I get down on the yoga mat, he wants to be with me, and then I can't really meditate, but I try. I live a spiritual life. I exercise. I practice gratitude. And so it's you can feel you're broken when you just get this anger for no reason. And it's what the hell's wrong with me? Has a devil taken over my body? And I know a lot of that is probably hormones. We have those fluctuations, but I want, especially we as women, to get more comfortable with anger. Because personally, I know when I was a little girl, I had a temper. I would throw fits and emotional as all get out. And you get in trouble for that enough. You associate that emotion as bad, but it's really not the emotion. It was just the way I was handling it, right? Breaking things and throwing myself on the floor of Walmart if I didn't get a toy, but that's different, right? But I think just because it's conditioned out of us, we actually think that emotion is completely useless and shameful to have anger, but that's just the spectrum of human emotion, right? And I don't know if you've been following along for a long time or not, but my origin story of kind of how I got started in my blog is that I had kind of become suicidal. I had suicidal ideation, and I had had it even from the time I was a little girl because I dealt with really bad depression. It was really scary. And I just thought, people are probably better off without me because I have nothing to give. I can't even get out of bed. And I've had those dark moments being a mom of thinking, God, my kids, they deserve a better mom, because I would have these days where I just couldn't get out of bed. And that was kind of before my whole spiritual awakening and all of that. But I realize now, the more self-work I've done and the more healing my inner child, and what I've learned is that this depression is just the result of anger that's been repressed and suppressed. That's all it is. So when we don't have an outlet for our anger, that's the depression. That's the result. Because I don't know about you, but getting in trouble for having those big emotions as a little girl, it made me believe that it wasn't safe to have those and that I couldn't trust myself with it. And so a lot of the work that I've tried to focus on lately is not trying to suppress the anger when it comes, and either channeling it, like I'll go to the gym and blast like freaking Tool or Rage Against the Machine or Nine Inch Nails, just blast that hard music and channel it all into my workout, pumping the iron. That's always a good one. Quick pause, you beautiful soul. So if you've been vibing with this episode and you are building a brand, a blog, or even a brick and mortar business, I would love to support you in your journey. I am so freaking excited to announce that I am now offering one-on-one consulting for creatives and entrepreneurs who want to grow with their feminine flow, their soul essence, and are over the hustle, over the burnout, and done spinning their wheels on strategy that doesn't even fucking convert. To learn more about my offerings and to book something with me, head on over to introvertedinfluence.com. And now let's get back into it. But I also think there's times when you need to just sit in it. And I think anger is amazing when you have been selling yourself short, or when you've been putting up with something that is low self-worth, a low self-worth dynamic, and you get angry. That is an awesome sign. So you need to be happy if you're angry, because it sure as hell beats the alternative, which is depression. And on the spectrum of consciousness, I wish I could pull up there's a spectrum of consciousness, and they measure wavelengths, right? Well, anger is actually in the more positive direction than depression. And that makes so much sense, because if you have this anger, you can put your foot down finally and say, enough is enough. I know I fucking deserve better. I know I deserve a better life. I know I deserve to be treated better. Enough of this shit. I'm going to do something. So don't be afraid of that. And I'm trying to think if there's really, I think just really what I'm using this anger for right now, mainly is for working out in the gym, but also like putting my foot down on a lot of shit where I used to think, I used to allow myself to stay small or put up with less than I know I deserve. And we don't have to do it in this stereotypical toxic feminist way. It's not that way. It's not how you necessarily interact with others. It's kind of what you're willing to deal with yourself, if that makes any sense. So number one, anger. That is a beautiful emotion. Beautiful. But I know as women, we're supposed to be good girls and people pleasers. Enough is enough of that shit, okay? Feel your anger, transmute it, use it as fuel. And then something else that just in my experience from expanding myself to be around women and to learn from women who are doing much bigger things than I am and taking much bigger risks, I see where I'm such a weenie about taking on debt for my business. And as a Virgo and someone who grew up not with a ton of money, we weren't poor by any means, but I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. I was so afraid of debt. I didn't even get a credit card until my late 20s and would hardly use it. Now, over the past few years, I've invested in continuing education for my blog. I've invested in hiring people, and I can get uncomfortable. I haven't seen the ROI on that. And I've still got, this business credit card with this much debt. And I'm not comfortable with that because I've never had that before. And I just don't think men are as conscientious of that. And maybe I'm wrong. But what I've noticed is the women doing the big things, I'm like, fuck, that girl drops this for that for her business. Like, I couldn't even imagine, like, my nervous system, like, no way. But it's like, there's good debt and there's bad debt. Let's remember that. And if there's debt going towards your business or your self-improvement or your health, I think that's positive debt. And we can't freak out about it so much. It's just a decision to pay something off over time. And the beautiful thing about, like, if I have an S Corp, I'm not really sure how it works with, I'm sure it works the same with like LLC or whatever, but this is the beauty of going ahead and getting your LLC or getting an S Corp and getting someone who knows taxes go ahead and set you up properly if you're starting a business, because that business credit card debt that I have, it doesn't go towards my personal credit score. So that's one beautiful perk of really doing things the right way with your taxes and your business so that you're not taking on that debt personally. It does not go on your credit score. So I think that the patriarchy has made us afraid to take on risks, afraid to play big with money, and afraid to feel our feelings and acknowledge our anger. That keeps us small, subservient. And today I just felt the calling to remind you, those are not dirty words anymore. Anger, debt, not dirty words. How the fuck are you going to build a business? I mean, unless you just have a shit ton of cash, you're going to have to take on debt, baby. You're going to have to play a little bigger than you're used to. I know it's scary, especially if you were raised like I was, like in a middle-class family where debt is shameful, but it's just how it works. So I hope this helped. I hope this expanded your consciousness and made you look at things a little differently. I'm not trying to like say get into these like really, irresponsible situations either. That's why I specifically said, like, if it's going towards your business, if it's going towards your well-being and health, but not like just random shopping sprees at TJ Maxx and Home Goods for shit, which I've been guilty of. I've been guilty of in the past. So with that being said, I'm sending you so much love. And please, if there's a topic you want me to cover, please reach out and message me on Instagram. I'm at Designing Vibes, because 94 episodes in and I'm like, what do people need from me? I would love to know. So anyhow, I'm sending you so much love and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We could keep on spreading the word about this podcast. And 2 ways you can help me out is by leaving me a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this episode on, or you can actually take a screenshot of this episode and tag me over on Instagram at Designing Vibes. And of course, I would love you to DM me whatever resonates, and I am sending you so much love.